So, on this channel, I like to pretend that I'm all serious and we only analyze films. We talk about good films, we like to appreciate cinema and art and all that. But there are times when someone like me has had enough. Really. You know how there's this thing going around about how brown representation has increased in Western cinema and whatnot, and we should be really happy. There's so many more Indians on screen all the time. And the thing is, I know that's not enough. That's actually it's not even close to being enough. Today what I want to do is go into a deep dive and look at how Indians have been portrayed and brown people in general have been portrayed in American and British cinema over time, and where we really stand today. And as we go along, we are going to make it a little fun and I'm going to say whatever I think, which I do normally, but like this time I'm gonna give it to them. So let's go. The first film that you think of when you think of really terrible representation of Indians on screen is definitely Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Let's admit it, it's Amrish Puri in all his glory. He's the best in every role he does, but here he's obviously the highlight of the film. But the film overall is of course very outlandish. Okay, it's set in a fantasy village and a fantasy world where there's a fantasy cult and all kinds of fantasy shit happening. Indiana Jones comes to this village where he's literally treated like a white savior out of nowhere, and let me remind you that this is pre-independence time, okay, and the film knows it. They do show some British officers at this time. At a time like this, I don't think poor Indian people would go and embrace and touch a white person. They would run and hide inside their homes before they got killed. But anyway, they love these Americans and they're like, oh my god, you people are definitely going to save us. And then these Americans go to the base of the problem. They've been told that the Maharaja of whatever that random place is basically in some kind of a cult and it's an evil god. They have stolen the shivling and they are worshipping their evil god with its powers basically. And we find out that the evil god they're talking about is Kali. So basically, the dark-skinned feminist icon of a god is the evil god because they couldn't just make up a random god at that time. They made up a lot of shit in that movie, let me tell you. I mean, the first thing that really comes to mind when you talk about made-up stuff is what they were eating. Maybe there's some part of India in some kingdom at some point in history when some Maharaja was like, I want to eat the brains of monkeys. But never in the history of India has anyone said that, you know what I would really like to eat? It's raw meat. Indians, anyway, they are stuck up about their meat and not eating meat and vegetarianism and whatnot. And upar se we like to cook our food. You make fun of our curries, then at least make a curry out of that disgusting stuff you're showing on screen. But anyway, that was the time of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Forget about it. That's like passé, right? This was before the 90s, before the 2000s, right? And in the 2000s, obviously things changed, yeah? In the 2000s, India became all about the spiritual journey. The place where the white people come to like discover themselves. The first thing they discover is a woman who is too young to be married, about to get married. And the funny thing is that this woman is always someone who's very affluent. She speaks perfect English. And the reason I'm saying this is relevant is I'm talking about outsource. So she comes from a household where she's been fully educated and she's going out doing whatever she wants. She doesn't seem to have a curfew. She is independent. But somehow her family arranged her marriage when she was a small baby, and she still sticks to it, and she says she will learn to love her husband, because that's what all Indian women do. No matter how much independence we have got, we never want to go against our parents. Yeah, I mean, Indian women are totally not running away from the country just to avoid the pressure of marriage, arranged marriage, that is. Yeah, that's totally not happening. We do whatever our parents say. My parents told me to shoot this video, by the way. Then there was, of course, Eat, Pray, Love, where Julia Roberts comes, and again she discovers the 17-year-old who's getting married at 17 in the same temple where she's living, and then they insult thumbs up for being sweeter better than Coca-Cola, even though it's literally manufactured by Coca-Cola, but whatever, that's the only thing they probably had in India while they were here. And otherwise, they were probably spending all their time at McDonald's. So I don't expect them to have known much else. Again, this was a time, right? This was all, let's just forgive all this again. We can always count on directors that the film bros and cinema lovers and cinemaphiles love, right? Actually, that's not what happens when you watch The Darjeeling Limited by Wes Anderson. I couldn't finish this film. I mean, I started and I was... It was so jarring. Like, spend 1 month in India before shooting a film. That's all I ask. Spend 1 month. And now if you tell me, if you do your research and come back and tell me that, oh no, you don't know, Wes Anderson spent so much time in India before shooting this film, and this is what he came up with. Honestly, I would have forgiven everything about that film. I don't care that much. But then he puts a picture of Satyajit Ray in the background. Satyajit Ray is turning in his grave looking at how India is depicted in this film. Just saying. So anyway, forget about it. We'll forgive Wes Anderson. He's great. Because recently he came out with 2 short films where he again portrayed India. But this time he was doing it in a more Wes Anderson way, where everything is fake in the background that everyone seems to love. So I always said that Wes Anderson has a colonial hangover, even though he's American, I know that. But he has a lens which is from this bubble, a very colonial bubble of looking at the world. And that was proven right when I watched his short films, Poison and The Wonderful Life of Henry Sugar. Look, I'm not saying that this is in any way racist, okay? I don't think Wes Anderson is racist. I just think he is not interested in educating himself, much like the rest of the world or the rest of Hollywood. I didn't mind the way he portrayed India in these 2 films, but of course they are written at a time when the British occupied India, and that is why I found that Wes Anderson was a lot more comfortable depicting British India, where things have a modern touch to them, where things aren't just yellow, gaye bhains, mala, tika, whatever. So he was more comfortable depicting that. And I do also give him credit that, for the first time, I personally saw a film that talked about caste, where a British officer insults an Indian man based on his caste, besides being racist, of course. So I really like that. But I think there's still something to be desired overall. But I have hope for Wes Anderson. Just putting it out there. Now, in the meantime, I should also tell you that I am a Marvel fan. At the time when I was really excited for Endgame and Infinity War and all these, I went back and watched the Avengers, and I saw that Bruce Banner was in Calcutta. Did you know that? He was in Calcutta, and Calcutta looks a lot like a gully of like Purani Delhi or like a Hyderabad. There is a child speaking Hindi. Very broken Hindi. Very clearly she has never spoken Hindi in her lifetime. She might have been saying tum sala gulam log, and we wouldn't have understood because her accent was so strong. But it's okay. I mean, they couldn't possibly get one child actor who can speak Hindi for one role, right? Bruce Banner is obviously fixing India, fixing Indians, fixing some disease that Indians have, because that's what white people do. They come and they fix us, okay? Of course, I'm not even going to talk about Slumdog Millionaire. You know what happens. You know what it is. I don't want to talk about it. Now, before we even go further, I want to show you this small clip from Downton Abbey.
We heard about that terrible Amritsar business.
Amritsar was a very unfortunate incident, ordered by a foolish man.
I can't agree. General Dyer was just doing his duty.
You haven't got that quite right.
I suppose we're each entitled to our own opinion.
Are we? I hesitate to remind you that Shrimpy knows India and you don't.
Now, when you look at this clip, it makes you feel good maybe that, oh, they're addressing Jallianwala Bagh. That's very big of them. They're acknowledging the problems we faced in India. But you know what? They're really not, if you think about it, because what they're doing is, making the main characters say that this terrible business that happened in India, which was clearly, it sounds like they think it's a one-off and not something the British have been doing over and over in different circumstances, different situations, just killing people randomly. That's not a thing that the British do in India at all. Then the person who supports what happened is a person who has been shown as a bit of a foreigner and a bit of a villain in the show. So what they are basically doing is showing that the British actually totally get that the Jallianwala Bagh incident should not have happened. I mean, mean, the hundreds of years of oppression that paid for Downton Abbey and all the people for their lavish lifestyles and all that cast that aside. Let's not talk about all that. But Jallianwala Bagh should not have happened. Okay. Now we are in a different era. Now we have something called the Indian diaspora. The diaspora is now making shows and films where Indians are finally being represented by Indian writers, Indian showrunners, and Indian experts, apparently. So they are putting in all that Indian culture in all the Western stuff that's coming out. So how is that going? Just to find out, I watched 2 shows. I watched the whole of Never Have I Ever, and I watched the second season of Bridgerton. Bridgerton I had already watched. Never Have I Ever I didn't want to watch, but I made myself watch it. And I will tell you something. I was genuinely surprised by Never Have I Ever. I actually didn't mind the show. It was pretty decent. I went in thinking that I'm gonna die watching it because I really didn't want to, but it was okay. I liked it. That being said, let's look at their representation of Indians. Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna go into the tacky NRI fashion, the disgusting looking jewelry that looks like they've made it at home, and the saris that look like they bought it from like one of those, you know, वो जो स्कूल के डांस प्रोग्राम के लिए जहाँ से कपड़े हायर करते हैं ना, वहाँ से.
The sari is so uncomfortable. Why does it itch so much?
So it looks like they kind of did that. So I'm just not going to go over all of those. But let's see what they did in terms of the Tamil representation. But one thing we need to remember is that Mindy Kaling is essentially American. She has never really shown any signs of embracing Indian culture as such. I'm not saying she has to. It's her choice. She can do whatever she wants. The lack of knowledge about India shows in this show. Basically, at one point, Kamala, who's supposed to be from India, says this.
I hate pranks. I don't understand why America has a national holiday to celebrate them.
I agree. April Fool's is way scarier than Halloween.
So, Mindy, I just want to tell you that April Fool's is a worldwide thing. Okay, America is firstly America is not the center of the universe. Secondly, April Fools happens everywhere, especially in India. People love shouting April Fool on April Fool's Day. Okay, Kamala also says how happy she is that there are more flavors of ice cream than pista. First of all, I find it very difficult to find flavors like pista. It's mostly chocolate, vanilla, strawberry, 2-in-1 and butterscotch and blackcurrant, and you'll have so many flavors before you come to pista. You'll have kesar pista before you get to pista, okay? So I don't know what the fuck she's talking about. You would know how to make a better joke about it if you spoke to some actual Indians who moved to America and tasted American ice cream for the first time and told you what their experience was. But you didn't do that. You just assumed. Didn't you? I know you did. I had read an article where it basically questioned the way caste is portrayed in Never Have I Ever, and it's a very subtle thing. Caste is always very subtle. It's never in your face. But one thing that is in your face in the show is basically the community is rejecting a woman for having married a Muslim, and then the woman has divorced the man already, and then she admits that, I wish I hadn't married him. Maybe I should have just had an arranged marriage.
I wish I just listened to my family and married the guy that they chose. And maybe I wouldn't be divorced.
And I'm like, why couldn't she have said that I made a mistake, the relationship didn't work out, but I loved the man and I did what I did and I would do it again? Why would you just say that, no, you're right, I shouldn't marry a Muslim and I should definitely get an arranged marriage? Wow, that is completely anticlimactic. At the beginning of this video, I said that I totally don't have any friends who are running away from this country because they want to escape arranged marriage. Kamala is someone who has escaped the country already, and somehow she's still getting roped into arranged marriage, and she has no resistance to it whatsoever. I'm not saying that she has to have resistance. You can opt for arranged marriage if you want, but she is willing to break up with her boyfriend because her parents have told her to. Like, they haven't told, obviously her parents don't know she has a boyfriend, but like, she will just go with what her parents are saying because Indian women are demure and don't have a mind of their own. Until, of course, they come to America and become like Devi's mom, who's very progressive and whatnot. So that's different. And of course, there's the usual calling a lehenga sari for some reason.
Yeah, your sari's looking a little loose. Let me re-tie you.
And she's not even talking about the lehenga itself. She's talking about the choli or the blouse. The blouse is not a part of the sari. Mindy Kaling, can you please? Everyone was like, oh my god, brown representation has happened. She has danced at a wedding, khatam. Whatever, who cares? So then we move on to Bridgerton. Now listen, I love Bridgerton. Every season. I watch it diligently. I cannot avoid it. But throughout the second season of Bridgerton, I could not stop cringing. When I went into this, I thought that they would just show these diaspora people, NRIs, people who have lived in England their whole lives. But no, they are showing an Indian family that has come from India, okay? These two women who were raised in India, and yet one of them pronounces Ghalib as,
Have you read Ghalib? Ghalib.
भाई तू गरीब बोल देती इससे अच्छा. I mean, we don't have to look up pronunciations, do we? Now that's just the actor's problem maybe, or the researchers or the writers, whatever, somebody's fault. Who cares, right? But here's the thing. The family is the Sharmas. So I'm assuming they belong to North India, right? Somewhere in Punjab or UP or some other part of North India where the name Sharma exists. But they call their dad Appa. Now you might say that, oh, this is probably because their mom is Tamil or something, right? Like, it's totally not because of lack of research or because they thought randomly we can call anyone anything. No, they call their mom Mama, because she is British. I think you get the point I'm trying to make, okay? But let me just emphasize a little more. Kate's sister calls her Didi. She doesn't say Didi, thank you. But Kate calls her Bon.
You have choices, Bon.
Bon. I thought she's trying to call her Bon like, oh, my Bon, my sweetie. But apparently it's supposed to be the Bengali word for sister. The Bengali word for sister is bone. It's literally bone. Is it really that hard to say it? I mean, you might say that, oh no, if you say it in English, it will sound like B-O-N-E, bone. Mat bol na phir. Mat bol. Naam se bula. Nobody calls their younger sister Bone. Nobody. Listen, honestly, you didn't have to pull all this. You didn't have to give a Punjabi name and make them call their parents Tamil things and then call her sister Bengali names and what. You didn't have to do all this mixture just to honor Indian culture by insulting every part of it. Then you had to go one step further, yeah? You had to go and talk about chai over and over. In any other case, I would say that, oh, maybe they shouldn't have shown tea because chai hadn't been popularized all over India in the early 1800s, if I'm not wrong. But let's assume that, okay, this is firstly a fantasy situation. Secondly, we can just say that, okay, these are affluent people. Maybe to them, chai had already reached their households and there were a lot of places where chai was already popularized. Let's just assume that, okay? Kate keeps insulting British tea everywhere and we are like, haha, yeah, she's insulting British tea, yeah, go chai. And then this is how she makes chai. For anyone who doesn't know, this is not how chai is made. Number one. Number two, she does not have the right to insult British tea if this is how she's making chai. And number three, my problem is not that chai is just going straight through the sieve and not collecting any flavor from the spices and just becoming regular British tea anyway. My problem is with those spices just sitting there getting soaked for no reason. Imagine how they were grown in some Indian plantation and taken to Britain after being bought at a low cost, exploiting Indian farmers. And this is what that woman is doing with those spices. And yes, talking about the history of India, they don't mention colonial history anywhere. It's not like British have not colonized India. The India is totally fine. Like, no, nothing, it's totally normal. No, nobody has to bring it up. The silks we are wearing, we totally grew them ourselves. Everything we own is totally British. It totally doesn't come from all over the world. So let's not talk about it. And you might think, arey, fantasy hai, why do they have to discuss colonialism? Well, the thing is, in the first season, they did have to mention that the white people and the black people were divided by color.
We were two separate societies, divided by color, until a king fell in love with one of us.
So they could have done it this season too, but the British don't do that. You might ask, what is the point of all this? What is the point of ranting about all of these things that's just been going on? How are things going to change? I think let's talk about the root of the problem here. After all of the terrible representation by Americans and English people, why is the Indian diaspora doing this? I think it has a lot to do with their immigrant parents. The culture their immigrant parents bring with them is different from the culture they learn. Because when Indians go abroad, a lot of things change for them. A lot of Indians will often adopt the country that they have gone to as their only culture and try to teach their children to be British or American. These children don't really learn to be Indian. as adults, they may want to embrace that identity because they realize there are differences in their society based on their skin color or based on some of the cultural differences. But they don't know the nuances because their parents didn't teach them, especially when it comes to specific regional nuances. Many a times it is possible that when you are in India, you're Bihari, you're Bengali, you're Tamil, you're Kashmiri, you're Punjabi, you're Manipuri or whatever, but when you go abroad, you just become Indian. So you form a community where you decide to homogenize as Indians and you create one homogeneous culture that is often Savarna. Okay, let's just admit it. You gatekeep that culture and turn it into this homogeneous mass where you can't really tell two cultures apart. And your children grow up learning that. So they think
Indian's Indian.
that's how they think, and they don't really want to think otherwise. When they're trying to honor their culture, they end up humiliating us in some ways. And you might think that it's okay, it's not always possible. You remember when Priyanka Chopra started to learn the American accent? A lot of us didn't like it, a lot of us were okay with it. It's honestly none of our business. But the point a lot of people made was that Americans don't even understand the Indian accent. So it's important to go and learn the American accent when you are abroad. Let's take that argument and consider the fact that Americans love the British accent. And Americans love the French accent, which is a lot more difficult to understand than the Indian accent, which by the way is probably one of the clearest accents in the world because we literally pronounce every letter the way it's supposed to be pronounced. We don't say God instead of God when we read God. So what is the problem exactly? The problem is that the Indian accent is a brown people's accent. They don't want to adapt to accents that they don't see as their own. And when I say as their own, I mean white culture. The French people are considered the paramount in terms of white culture. They represent the best of art and culture, and Paris is the ultimate artist's destination. That's where romance happens and everything. So when you go in there and you say that, oh, I'm Indian, you're not exotic in the way a Parisian is. A Parisian gets respect as someone who's exotic. But you as an Indian have to adapt to the American way to be respected. The problem is not your accent. It's not that they don't understand it. It's that they don't care to understand it. So next time, let's look at every show, every film from a lens of what it's really saying to us about our culture. Is a brown-skinned person on screen enough? Is a random representation of India enough? Or is a good representation of brown people like Pakistan in Miss Marvel what we really need? Think about it. And let me know what you thought about this video. It's a little different from the kind of videos I usually make. So let me know in the comments what you think. And subscribe to my channel if you like the video and you can watch more videos. I will see you next time. Bye!